Welcome back to another episode of How It All Works. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for this discussion. This is a special treat. Folks, we've been at this thing for 14 weeks. Can you imagine? 14 weeks. We started off at 2 p.m. on Mondays, and with your feedback and your recommendations, we went to 5:30 p.m. on Mondays in the Central Standard Time Zone. And today we get to hear from technology leaders, and it's going to be awesome. I get a chance to put back on a hat that I used to wear. In some respects, I still wear to a certain extent. And these are folks we don't get to hear from often. These are perspectives that are so critical and so interesting for everybody to hear. And so I'm excited to dive right into the conversation. So without any further ado, let's do just that. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Some of you, I probably are still muted, but I am just excited to have every one of you on the panel today. We listen for those in the comments. You are in for a treat. These are people that I look to for advice, for guidance. People that I'm particularly interested in hearing their perspective. So we are going to just take a second and see what people are saying in the comments. I see Marsha Cantrell is saying good evening. Good evening, Marsha. David Hunt is saying so excited for this conversation. David is in I think he's in the Massachusetts area. So David, welcome, and he's one of our HIAW alumni. He's been here, I think, almost every week, right, David? Tell us how many weeks you've been here. How many weeks have you been following along this show? Tell us in the comments. And then, of course, Kanik Mighty Nugent says hi. I think she has a vested interest in this program. That's my wife, y'all. That's she's literally in the other room. Her and the kids are probably there watching. Just gonna take a moment. Yeah, David Hunt says he only missed one. That's a pretty good record. Just gonna take a moment to go around the digital room and have everybody introduce themselves. This is a brief introduction. We want you to hear in their own words who they are, where they are, and you know how they are relevant, how their voice is relevant to this discussion. So we're gonna start right as we sit. To my right or left, depending on how you're looking at the screen, with Dr. Harris. I don't usually call him Dr. Harris, but I was looking at his bio trying to prepare for today's show, and I was like, man, it sometimes, misses me that you actually do have your PhD, and it's not even like you got it yesterday. You've had it for quite some time, sir. So Denali, I see you in the comment. President accounted for. I love that. Love that. Thank you so much for your support. We've got about 10 people watching. This is great. So, Dr. Harris, tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
So we begin to age me. Thank you very much, Kirk. We begin to age me quite a bit when we realize it's been 25 years since somebody decided to grant me a PhD.
Wow.
And so that was back in the day.
Definitely.
I used to think it was just yesterday, but my name is DP Harris. Nobody calls me doctor. But I'm the Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Loma University in Southern California. I've spent most of my career, probably my entire career in higher education. I tell people for the past 30 years, I've woken up every day and gone to a college campus of some sort or another.
Oh my.
So we'll tell you a bit more about that journey in the later on. But at Loma Linda, I'm responsible for the team that does all the magic, especially during this difficult time, to keep education flowing, to keep all the administrative processes flowing.
Right.
When we've sent all of our staff, all of our students, and all of our faculty, we've sent them home. We have to keep education flowing. So that's the fun I'm having.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much, DP. For that perspective, and definitely one that we will return to. I'm interested to hear from you and from Paige Francis about how college life is, campus life is during this pandemic. We had some really cool perspectives last week as we talked to some college and university CIOs. So kind of continuing that in some form. And I know our next guest, Mr. Stephen McWilliams, is also from the college background. He worked at Oakwood University for a time, but I want you to tell the folks a little bit about yourself, where you are now. Go ahead, Steve.
All right, thanks, Kurt. So my name is Stephen McWilliams. I currently work at Georgia Hospital Association, the biggest healthcare trade association in the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. And there I am in the VP CIO role. And I've been there for about 5 years. And before that, as Kurt mentioned, I was in higher ed. I worked at Oakwood University, and it was Oakwood College for a bit of time there. Worked there for almost 9 years. And so got a chance to participate in the higher ed space and now in the nonprofit healthcare space. And, just enjoying every day. I really enjoy working in technology. I feel like it never gets old for me. It's always something new around the corner. So. Just really enjoy here working in IT. And thanks, Kirk, for the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the reasons why I chose technology as a field. Is because I figured if I wanted to do something different every day, this is the one. We want to come back a little later to talk a little more about the that award that you were up for. So we'll definitely touch on that a little later in the show. Michael Levine, somebody that I've had an opportunity to chat with, and somebody whose book I own and have a signed copy. Just a shameless plug for those who are there. I'm going to put it up on the screen in a second. But Mr. Levine, can you just tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your perspective as it relates to technology leadership?
Certainly. I formally retired from U.S. Bank as the Chief Information Officer for Consumer Lending and Business Banking at the end of April. So I had intended to do some more writing and some teaching and some consulting, and the pandemic got in the way. So I've been spending my summer mostly riding my bike and talking to people, trying to figure out what's next. I spent most of my career in CIO kinds of positions, mostly in banking. Probably the most well-known thing I did was lead Wells Fargo home mortgage throughout the whole mortgage crisis, where we had combined technology and process engineering into one function. So that was quite an interesting ride. And then I've written 3 books kind of about my learnings to try to help people do a better job at information technology. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we go.
Absolutely. I love the name of the website, Tales of Agility. Tales of Agility. So for those in the comments, write that one down. That's a site you're going to want to visit and want to go to. Right next to Michael is Richard Stephenson, and it's somebody who is a friend and brother, and excited to have you here, man. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your perspective as it relates to technology leadership.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Stephenson. I serve as the Director of IT Services for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in North America. And I've really spent the last 2 decades working for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So this has been the bulk of my career over the last 20 years. And, recently, I guess the great irony of COVID is we are seeing tremendous change within the IT space in the nonprofit area in particular. There have been efforts to achieve what we've done in weeks under COVID, which otherwise had not been done in maybe 10 years.
Wow.
And so it's really tragic on the one hand that we're in this global pandemic, obviously, but it is enabling a new era of IT within the church, and for me personally, that is deeply gratifying.
Excellent. Yeah, the time to market, time to production has definitely been increased rapidly, or should I say decreased, during this pandemic. And no one knows that more than the higher ed, college, university space. And so, Paige, we're so glad you're able to join us from the great University of Tulsa. But you've had a storied career. Actually got a chance, as I mentioned, I do some homework. I do some, I guess, digging on the panel members as I prepare for the show. So came across a couple of items. Paige is a writer, and I've got a chance to read a couple of her articles, and they're phenomenal. So Paige, tell folks a little bit about your perspective, about yourself and your perspective as it relates to technology leadership.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Paige Francis, Vice President for IT and Chief Information Officer at the University of Tulsa. I have officially survived our first day back on campus with our students. It's been since March, I think. And I have now served, I think, in the trifecta of higher ed institutions in my 13 years in higher ed. Started at a community college, then moved to a private liberal arts, then the R1 research public institution, University of Arkansas, and now I'm at the University of Tulsa. Kind of loving it. Prior to higher ed, I was in industry. I worked for Dave & Buster's corporate office, as well as Thomson Reuters in the Dallas Metroplex area.
Oh, wow.
And really, I think part of my favorite part about working in IT is that it seems like every time you really focus on the user experience, you stand out a little bit. And I learned all about IT, basically building applications for general managers of restaurants whose primary phrase was always, I'm just here to sell cheeseburgers. And so from that point moving forward, everything that I've taken with me has been very much just sort of a user-centric attitude. Higher ed is perfect for that because you can mistake every day and learn from it every day. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. Pandemic's been interesting. You know, first day at TU today, students are back.
Wow.
And my 6th grader and 8th grader started in my training room right over there. They're virtual for the first semester. So it's just, it's crazy. I think we're all riding the same wave.
It is. That's true. That's true. And it's interesting. I think that's the beauty of being able to talk with so many different people from different vocations and backgrounds on this show. You see this recurring theme throughout the discussions. Because we're all dealing with the pandemic. So no one is exempt. No one gets to say, oh, well, that's somebody else. Even though we have different vocations, different disciplines, different backgrounds, different careers, we all are dealing with the pandemic. And so we have a very unique perspectives on that as we go through. Thank you, everyone, for just introducing yourselves. I'm interested, so excited about what we're going to be able to discuss here today. And so now that we've kind of divided the stranger among us, let us dive into some of the questions. So I'm always mindful to keep checking back to the comments to see if anybody is saying anything. I see our numbers are rising, which is great. And we want to just welcome you to the show on technology leadership. And again, we've got a panel of technology leaders from various different backgrounds and industries and fields, but all in technology. And so we're interested to hear what they have to share. And as we dive into our discussion, our first question is for everybody, and this again is not really geared or aimed at anyone. Anybody can touch it. It's let's kind of discuss the dynamics of technology leadership. You know, how it has evolved and where we see it going as we get into the future, especially as it relates to this current pandemic.
Yeah, Kirk. So, I was thinking about that as I see this question here. And, I was thinking, in the past, when I think of IT leadership, I would observe leaders. And I feel that in the past, there were more strategic, more operational leaders. They were IT leaders they're getting given tasks to do. They go out, knock those tasks out, and I think fires would come up. They were kind of postured to kind of keep the fires out. Whack-a-mole is as I would maybe describe it. And, so I think that in the past, maybe IT leaders have been viewed that way. And maybe some may argue they still are in some places. But as organizations have evolved and become more mature, I think that has impacted the IT leader. And I think that you now find more and more IT leaders that are more strategic. They're creating relationships with their counterparts. And creating the kind of change and impact that is measurable. And so as I continue to see that evolution, I would say that the future, and maybe even happening now, we look to the transformational IT leader. That's someone that is a business leader. They transcend technology. They are leading the business. They may have a background and knowledge in technology, but they're sitting at the table and they're driving the business forward. And so for me, what I expect to see from that type of leader is original thought, innovation. I was thinking to myself, I like to measure things. And I imagine in the future, this type of leader will come in and take a department or an area and turn it from a cost center into a revenue generating organization or operation. And I really think that when you come to the table and you're bringing money, it changes the conversation.
Definitely.
It's a different conversation, and I think you're viewed differently. So, that's kind of a little bit of my perspective on that.
Sure. Anybody else want to take a stab at that one? technology leadership, how it has evolved? And
Yeah, I can try, Kurt.
Yes,
No,
please.
I mean, I've been in this business for a long time now, right? And I think over the last 50 years from when this industry first started, the degree to which our business lines and our operations groups depend upon technology has just been on a secular increase. Right? Every year, technology becomes more and more important to almost all of our businesses, right? No matter if you're in education or banking or manufacturing, it's more and more important. And so as it does, it's not getting any simpler either, which means that for business people and ops people to deal with technology, the skill set and knowledge and experience they have to have in technology to make good decisions also has increased.
Right.
So to me, what it's meant is that every business leader who is significantly dependent upon technology has to have a partner or a direct report who's expert at technology. And I don't mean just the nuts and bolts of it. I mean in managing and guiding technology and technology people.
Absolutely.
So I've thought about it as every business leader needs a CIO, right? And then in our jobs as the real CIO, right, of companies or as divisions, our job is how do you build the right CIO for everyone? And how do you make them work together in a way that's effective for everyone?
That's good. That'll take us into our next question as well. But I want to give a couple others an opportunity to take a stab at this one.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in and say one of the things that I have learned is that technology leadership is as much about connecting people and empowering people as it is about the devices or the technology itself. If I'm not enabling people, if I'm not giving people a platform to do what they do, only more efficiently, more effectively, then I would argue that I'm really failing out at one of the primary tenets of technology, enabling people, empowering people. And that's the great irony, is it is less about the technology and it's more about connecting the people so that they can do whatever it is that they've been asked to do.
Very good. I mean, we got there pretty quick last week as well. It's very lesson. One person said, I don't do anything technical. I'm all people management. Anyway, I think one or two others wanted to chime in. Go ahead.
Well, I'm happy.
I was talking.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Please, Paige.
Well, I mean, just sort of carrying on the last statement, I feel as if through this entire pandemic, I keep feeling like I'm over communicating to a point to where people on the campus have got to be tired of hearing from me, and yet they're still begging for more. So I'm definitely not the technician. I've got technicians that work with me, and I'm a humanities girl. I'm of the arts and sciences. So I think that had there not been a little bit of a change in what technology leadership looked like, I would have had no interest to ever be a technology leader. And, I really think it is. It's about connecting, and it's really about communicating. Because if people don't understand what you're selling, they're not going to buy it and they're not going to use it. And all of a sudden you find yourself in all kinds of legacy debt that no one is using. So
I like that term, legacy debt.
Absolutely.
Somebody's got to pay for it.
Yeah, no, I was talking to my my son the other day, and he was watching me in one of my meetings, and he said, "Dad," he's a young adult now. He said, "Dad, you don't deal with technology in your job, do you?" I said, "No, son, my job is not technology. My job is people and politics and process." But I've been in this field for 35, 40 years almost now. And so I might be the godfather of the group, although there might be one on the call that's got me beat by a couple.
I don't know.
But one of the things that struck me about 10 years ago or so is we had moved in the industry from where we were the experts in technology to where everybody is carrying in their pocket a computer that is more powerful than the first computer system that I managed back in the 80s,
Yeah.
the 1980s, for those of you who are still coming into the century. And we've gotten to the point where the user community understands more about their technology than the IT people. And so you have to relax all
Yes.
the way into, wait, I'm not the expert right now, but I have a perspective that I can help you think through what it is that you're trying to do and bring it and help you to craft a solution that meets your business goals.
That's interesting. That's good. That's interesting. I mean, we're getting some good comments here as well. Camilla says, "Love that. Giving people the tools so they can execute their vision efficiently." David Hunt says, "Hashtag legacy debt." I think you know Camilla Richard, don't you? Camilla Alexander.
I do. I know. I know
Um,
these both very well. I miss
Good.
the name tremendously.
Hey, Kirk,
Mark.
there's one thing I'd like to add to these comments.
Sure.
I mean, I think we're right about we have to deal with politics and people and teams. That's all really, really important. But if we're not good at technology, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean we have to be able to put the wires together. We have to make good technology decisions and make sure our systems work.
Absolutely.
If we don't do that, no matter how good we are with people, no matter how good we are with process, we're going to fail, right? So at its root, we have to be good technologists. Okay?
Well,
That doesn't mean you have to be an engineer, right? But if we go to someone who's what did you say you were a liberal arts girl?
Mm-hmm.
You can absolutely be very, very good at your job if you've got enough sense of people and you've been involved in this long enough, you know who to trust.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the biggest failures of my career is having people leading technology who shouldn't be leading technology.
Mhm.
Right.
And I think we've.
And I think technology has changed so much these days that's really just that's baseline, right? Like if the technology doesn't work, then what are you doing?
Exactly.
I think everyone can implement solid, reliable technology with a big enough budget or just the basics.
Mhm.
But I think it's that next level of services that goes on top of that you
Excellent.
really have to dangle in front of everyone because that's what they care about. Nobody cares about how the sausage is made. Nobody claps when the network runs. Nobody's excited when a toilet flushes. That's just like the basic, the nuts and bolts of the technology. If that's not working, you're out of the job.
Your hair is on fire.
Other
Yeah.
pieces that people find so exciting that really facilitates how they get through their day.
Yeah.
It's the expansion of that comment that says it's not that I'm the technology expert.
Mm.
It's I am the technology expert in leadership. And what that means is I will sit and I will talk to my technology experts. And I've found, every once in a while I go to work and I say, come back. And I say, I did my job as a CIO today.
Mm.
And that usually involves me talking to the experts and asking them questions and challenging their plans
Mhm.
and getting them to think about what they're doing a little bit differently. I said to one of my colleagues on Friday, I said, I don't know exactly what I mean by my next question. And then I stepped him through the plan that he had given me. And I said, can you please perfect what I just suggested to you? Because you've started by saying, yes, that makes complete sense. I said, great. Now tell me what I meant by it, or tell me how I should have said it. And he explained back to me his technology in a tighter fashion than his original proposal. And he was able to bring it forward. And so the decades of experience allows me to think about technology differently than someone who's got their head just straight down on the wires, as we say.
And then you're able to take that and translate it to the decision makers, the stakeholders, the department directors, everybody else, in a way that allows them to have buy-in and to understand the way forward and see how this will impact us for the good. There's a lot there. We're already off to the races. We do have another question. I wasn't sure if anybody else wanted to weigh in on that last one, but the next question is, in terms of, as we talk about the concept of what we've already been building, the dynamics of the technology leader and how it has evolved and where we see it going. So then what is your philosophy in terms of team building and putting the pieces together for a team that will stand the test of time? And I have a follow-up question to this one that I didn't send out to you, but I hope that that's okay. I was going to sneak one in there. But yeah, what is your philosophy on building a team?
I think most of us would say some version of find people smarter than you.
I like that.
So, I mean, the reality is everybody comes to the table with different perspectives and a different skill set. And you want to make sure you have people who are bringing in complementary skill sets, different ideas that you hadn't thought about, people who are aggressive enough in their opinion, but humble enough to listen.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I could kind of continue on that thought there. I always tell myself, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so, as you work with your team and set expectations and celebrate your wins and have those crucial conversations, I think you have to work with your team and build them and go through that process. And so, yeah, I think for me, I look for my Robin. I'm Batman. I'm looking for Robin. I'm looking for that number 2 person that I can rely on. And I have been that number 2 person, hopefully for some in my career, different individuals I've worked with. So I also just continue what you mentioned. Having smart people around you will make you look
and
better
allowing
than
those
if you
smart
don't.
people to do what they do. Continue.
Never want to be the smartest person in the room.
I would also add that building an effective and motivated team is every bit as much about building culture as it is about finding personnel. If you're not building culture, if you're not building a culture of innovation, you can have a bunch of very talented but siloed people on your team that end up working cross culture or counter to what you want to get done.
Yeah.
It's been said that culture eats innovation for breakfast, and I think that's absolutely true. How can we innovate if we have a culture that discourages innovation or a culture that implicitly accepts the status quo?
Wow.
And I think that's a real challenge for us, is maintaining that culture.
Yeah, that's good.
And for me, I want to make sure that we celebrate our misses as much as we celebrate our wins.
That's good.
I need teams, especially in the high tech folks, I need them to be comfortable in making mistakes and failing miserably, right? And I want to be the first person to highlight, what happened there and how we all learned from it. Because especially in higher ed, we have researchers on our campus. Everything about research points towards, you fail 299 times, and it's not one time that you really knock something out of the park. Yeah. And, I've walked into teams before where the culture has been very much fear. So they're not willing to take any risk or take any chances to improve.
Right.
That immediately drives that status quo. So, I want to make sure that we're building an innovative culture, but also a service-oriented culture and a culture that feels protected.
Well said.
And, and
that's good.
And can take some chances, fail, get back up, and then we all learn from it.
Excellent. So. Yeah, that's good. Wasn't sure if anybody else wanted to touch on that, but
I can do mine. So for me, there's a couple things. One is, as a technology leader and we're building a team, it's really important for me to build the relationships with the other team members, managers, right? That we have not only the team itself, but we have a team at the manager level.
Yes.
And that together we agree upon what we're trying to accomplish and how that team is going to work, and that we stay in touch so that we can help the team. And then I'm really focused on getting the right roles on the team. So that gets back to, I think, I don't know, it was DP or one of you said was, getting the right people on the team. So it's the right people, but it's also the right skill set, and then the right roles. So right now there's a big focus on self-managed teams, self-organizing teams, few roles. And I fundamentally don't really agree with that. So, I mean, I think you have to establish real roles like the lean chief engineer role, systems analysts are still important, test managers are still important, et cetera. You can't just throw a bunch of people in the room and say, organize yourself. It doesn't work very well. And then also means then building around that team. So not just saying, okay, you guys are going to do Scrum in this way, right? It's build the process that you guys like for what you're trying to do instead of forcing them to do safe or dad or something like that. I think it saps people's brains. And then the last one I'd say is that as a leader, you have to stay in touch with the team. So you can build a team, but they change so fast, right? Losing one good person can change it, or having one person get off the rails and push them in the wrong direction, or adding the wrong agile coach can just blow up the team. So you have to stay in touch with the team and stay in touch with the managers of the team so that you can adjust to that over time.
Excellent. I think somebody else was going to speak around this.
Yeah, I was going to jump in there just for a second because that was some very good conversation. This is good stuff. And, for myself to speak personally, I feel that I have been in situations where good leadership has recognized potential in other leaders. And I felt as if people were willing to invest in me. And so I would just say that for myself, I try to look for those individuals that are part of the team or that can be potentially part of the team and future leaders. And, I used to say this to myself. I don't know where I got this, but I've always told myself, you need to train the people so that they can leave the organization, but treat them in such a way that they don't ever want to leave. Right. So if I could just ingrain that in anyone else, in my team, as we're working together to move this, I describe ourselves as a train. Sometimes we're moving on a train, we're moving forward, get on board, find your seat. Hopefully that can be some inspiration to those listening in.
That's good, man. Really good feedback, really good points, touching on the questions. This is all relevant, good stuff. If you're an aspiring technology leader or any kind of leader, and you're in the comments right now, I see some of you are responding. David Hunt says, recognize the leadership potential in others. Mighty Nugent says, culture eats innovation for breakfast. That's good. And staying in touch with your team. I mean, that is so critical. So critical. I want us to right here at this point in the show. I mean, what we always do here at How It All Works is try to give people a peek behind the veil. A lot of times when you see people in these positions as CIO, CTO, senior vice president, in whatever the case may be, as our panel is arrayed before you, you don't get a chance to hear what that journey was like to get to that place. And sometimes in hearing that journey, you are also able to be motivated to continue putting one foot in front of the other as you're in the midst of your journey as well. And so a lot of people that engage with us on this show are aspiring professionals in many ways. And so what we're going to do here right now is just take a second to go through and highlight our stories. And they can be, we can take some time at this point. If we don't get to any of the other questions, that's okay. But I do want us to be able to get through everybody. And since we started with DP at the beginning, we're going to start with Paige now, if that's okay. I know I'm throwing the floodlight on you, Paige, but I do have something I'd like for you to touch on as well, if you could. No, that one. Let me find it. And here it is. This is something that I snipped out from a story that you wrote, and then of course this is the cover of your book, Demystifying IT. If you could just share with us a little bit about the perspective for this particular this story that you wrote, or article that you wrote, and for the book, and then just kind of talk to us a little bit about that portion of your journey and what led you to open up these kinds of avenues in your leadership journey.
Sure. So, especially in higher ed, and for those that have worked in higher ed, you understand you're almost never the smartest person in the room. You're just not. You're surrounded by academics. You're surrounded by PhDs like DP. You're surrounded by individuals who out-credential you day in and day out, right? And they tend to sort of target each thing that you say Like if you use the word pivot too much, they hate all of these sort of isms and acronyms and everything. So you have to be just continually careful about what you speak about. But then, I've been writing for, oh gosh, I think it's been since I was the CIO at Fairfield University in Connecticut. So, about 10 years, something like that. And I found that it's my outlet. Working in technology for those that are just nonstop enthused by high tech. It's different for someone who is arts and sciences and a little bit more of the creative or liberal artsy. So I've been writing for about 10 years, and you'll find that as things start to, rise to the top stress-wise, I write more and I write more. So I'm a contributor for Forbes, and, I've written this one pamphlet. I wrote that Demystifying IT book on Mother's Day of this year. In like one day, told my kids that I just wanted to get this idea out, and I did, and I wrote it. And it's really geared towards non-technical people who manage IT leaders. And it's because I found that of the three positions that I'd walked into, I'd always started by reporting to like the chief financial officer. And in each of those instances, I recognized that I would have conversations with these individuals, and they would just lead with, I don't know anything about IT, and I just expect you to do your job. And if you need anything, ... So the pandemic strikes, right? And at that juncture, I recognized how damaging that can be to not be taking full advantage of the IT leader that you should have at your business, primarily because we've been responding to this pace of change for at least 15 or 20 years. I've been in IT in higher ed for 13 years, and I feel as if we've always moved at lightning speed, trying to drag those administrative units to move quick enough to keep up with what we needed to do to get our job done and to serve where we were working. So I had written this book, and it was primarily geared towards non-technical people who are managing technical people and just making sure, here's what you should expect out of your CIO. Here are the questions you should be asking. Here are the terms you should be comfortable with. And it's really elementary. But then I had a president of a community college read it, and they were like, oh my gosh, this makes sense, because it was spoken in absolute layman's terms. But I just believe that in many instances, the chief information officer, the vice president of IT, we've been moving this quickly. We've sort of refined how to be strategic in that pace. And especially at a time like COVID, for those that had to make dramatic shifts, not that I know the date, but like March 11th, 2020, those that had to make dramatic shifts in how they did business, I bet if they had a strong CIO, it went a lot more smoothly for them. We made the switch at TU to go entirely remote in a 10-hour time period. TU, which effective March 2020, was unbelievably traditional, non-online. We made that pivot in 10 hours, and it was as seamless as it could be. And I've heard similar stories. I've also heard similar stories of institutions where their IT leader has not necessarily been invested in, and they really struggled. So, I wrote that book just to try to make sure, yes, I believe that most vice presidents of IT should report directly to the president. But there are at least 40% out there that don't. And so I had written the book just to try to make sure that for those that are managing IT, it's not comfortable for anyone. And you're really underutilizing your IT talent if you're not taking advantage of them in situations like what we've been going through. You're on mute, Kirk.
Thank you so much. I follow Paige. I follow Paige on LinkedIn, and some of her posts are very interesting. I always have a good laugh at some of, and I always resonate. In fact, some of what you just said, I could literally copy paste in terms of my own experience in higher ed as an IT leader. There's several conversations where you sit down and it's just you recognize that there's very little understanding or support from the person you directly report to. So I definitely understand that. And I love the idea that writing is your outlet. And Hopefully that gives a light bulb, goes off for somebody else as they think about their journey as well. Richard, let's talk a little bit about your journey as well. Different pieces of it, different aspects of it. I know that you have served in several capacities, several levels of leadership in the Adventist church denomination, and all in IT. Am I correct? Virtually.
Virtually
I know
all
that
in
there were
IT.
some other pieces there. But yeah, share with us a little bit about your journey and your story as well.
Yeah, so I think one of the most transformational moments for me came very early on. I was just out of college. I was working at one of our high schools within the church, and we were on a short-term mission trip, and I had a team of 6 or 7 high school students, and we all had shovels, and we were to dig a ditch. I don't remember what it was for. I'm sure it was a very important ditch that we were supposed to be digging. And I went in there thinking, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to show them how to dig a ditch. And what ended up happening was of the 8 of us or so, I was the only one who was digging the ditch.
Oh my.
And one of the leaders came by and said, Richard, I need to tell you something. Your hand doesn't fit that shovel. And then he walked away. And in hindsight, he was basically telling me that my job as a leader, and this is especially true within technology and team building, my job as a leader is to motivate, to inspire, to hold accountable, and then hopefully lead by example. But if I'm not motivating and inspiring, if I'm not leading the team, then I've got an unproductive team at best. I've got one person digging the ditch while the other 6 or 7 are sitting on the job,
Right.
are not being productive. And I have always remembered that your hand doesn't fit a shovel.
Wow.
As I've served, as I've led, is that the task is important, but equipping the team to do the task is more important than any other contribution that I could make.
Wow. That's good. That's good. Thank you so much for sharing, Richard. So many people out there recognize that leadership is not something that just comes natural, and there are those moments where the light bulb goes on, and you have an experience like the one you just shared, and it is transformational, and it's something that you can always refer back to, where you recognize the meaning of what was shared with you. Michael, I know. And now I know that there's a lot to the story, but
I'll try to keep it brief.
well, don't give us some pieces of it, so that we know, we can benefit from that experience. So, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I went to college at a liberal arts school, and they had, that was a long time ago, and there was only one computer science course a half a semester, and in retrospect, I wound up majoring in physics and international relations, but in retrospect, I should have been an engineer. I just didn't even know what an engineer was. And I think that today, most of our kids are exposed to what engineering is and have that opportunity. But I went into more international economics, and I did international trade negotiation for a while. And at some point in my career, I realized that wasn't for me. And I kind of gravitated towards computer software very early in the computer age. And then I came at it mostly from a business perspective. And that was kind of unusual to have people who were focused on the business, but also loved the technology and the people building. So I grew up through project management, system management. Here's a little graphic I have. Prior to 2002, I was doing product management and technology strategy, and then I became a CTO. And then from there, as a CTO, I kind of grew mostly in scale. So a couple of seminal episodes for me was at Wells Fargo. Prior to the mortgage crisis, we were trying to build a very major technology lending system, and it was a complete disaster. And my teams had already adopted lean and agile techniques. And what I realized was that we had a great company, Wells Fargo, and a great business leadership. And then we were trying to do technology in a way that simply didn't work. So I wanted to help people understand what lean and agile were and why we did it. And that was kind of my first book. And it sounds similar to you, Paige, where you have an outlet of writing, and that was one of my outlets. Is the disaster of $1 billion information technology system failure in a great company was hard for me to understand. So it helped me process it through. The next thing I did was I led the home mortgage at Wells Fargo through the mortgage crisis, which was an astonishing set of activities, as you can recall. I mean, the pandemic has now eclipsed it, but at the time it was the biggest crisis we had had in quite a long time. And I got to see under pressure that required a lot of technology, how people could transform their organizations to be better. And that led me to write my second book, which was How to Make Your Organization Do Lean and Agile. And I saw so many of our partners, so many groups within the bank, kind of struggling to deliver and provide value quickly. And then I moved to US Bank, which was at the time an organization that hadn't adopted much of lean and agile at all. And it really had a very formal relationship between the business and the technology groups with annual prioritization and budgeting, et cetera. And over time, we broke that down and became much more agile and lean and delivered. But what I saw as I got closer to the last several years is people taking agile as a technique and as a methodology instead of a philosophy. And that led me to write my most recent book, which is that it's all about leadership. So understanding lean and understanding agile techniques is fantastic, but all the things that you've been talking about in this session about leadership is really about sustaining and providing value over time. So I think a lot of my career has been making technology work for business in complicated new areas. And then through the lens of lean and agile over about 20 years and coming to kind of an endpoint at the point we're at now, which is it's really all about leadership, and it's about people being able to do what fits for their process and their experience and doing it with other people in a way that works for everyone.
Thank you, folks. I actually have a copy of the book, People Over Process. It's a good book, great book. In fact, you should take some time. It's on Amazon, and I believe Paige, your book is on Amazon as well. That's where I found it. So take some time. I don't know if somebody can find that. Maybe even share it in the comments so that others can find that link. But we're going to take a moment to go to Stephen McWilliams and hear a little bit about his story. He shared some of his higher ed roots, and now he's in the hospital system. And we want to hear a little bit about what your story looks like. And at some point, when you're ready, if you want to share with us what that experience of the recent award looked like, I'll put that on screen as well.
All right, very good. Well, yeah, like I've said before, for me, it started with the passion for IT and technology and helping others. And I think being in the higher ed space, what better way to help others and get exposed to different types of technology. And so, I worked in higher ed for almost 9 years. And the main thing I can say about my journey is particularly in the higher ed space was that I really formed some strong, impactful relationships with people. And I think we've already kind of echoed that earlier on, more so from the context of managing people, but even for myself, working with the different departments and forming relationships with my peers. And, it's interesting how this stuff comes full circle. You'll be, sometimes surprised how a relationship from the past will turn into something for the future. And so when I was an undergrad, during that time, I didn't even know, or I didn't believe that my passion could be something that I can make a living off of. As crazy as that sounds, I used to think if I was forced to have to do technology, it would no longer be fun. It would be a job. But it's actually the flip side. I mean, if I'm doing technology, it's like I'm not doing work at all. I'm having fun. So it took me a little bit of time to figure that out. I guess I had to learn the hard way. But after graduating undergrad, I did work for a small company and learned a lot there for a short period of time. Really had to stand up a IT department there, and then, like I mentioned, came back to Oakwood, where I worked for a good period of time. But going back to the relationships in my journey, it was a relationship that ultimately led me to my current role. I was invited to come out, and once I kind of established what I was about, relationship kind of got me there, but I still had to know what I was doing.
There you go. Yeah.
What I was mentioning before, if you don't know about at least enough about technology to make recommendations and to build trust and to gain that influence within the organization, I think it could be a little bit of a challenge for people to come to you. They may come around you or jump straight down to your team and kind of keep you out of the loop. And I've seen that before. So, being at my organization now, interacting with healthcare IT leaders in the state is just priceless. I think now I have, I'm having the opportunity to make significant impact on, I feel, every single Georgia citizen. Our goal is to improve healthcare across the state. And what better way to do that than to support the hospitals and to work with IT leaders, And so kind of going back into what's been already mentioned, it seems like leadership kind of takes you down similar paths. I've been serious recently about writing and contributing articles. And so over the last year or two, I've contributed multiple articles and actually wrote an article earlier this year that's been published in a magazine. And I think for those who are looking to grow their career in technology, I think writing and publishing is a great thing. Now, I haven't wrote a book yet, so I guess I'm not part of the book club yet, but who knows? I still got some time to work on that. So that's been my journey. If I could sum this up, I'd say it was a journey of relationships. That's what this has really been about.
Excellent.
A journey of relationships.
Excellent. We're gonna get to Dr. Harris. I'm just gonna call you Dr. Harris for the remainder of the show, but on Monday or tomorrow I'm gonna call you DP again. But we're gonna get to Dr. Harris in a second. But I want you to talk a little bit about the award and that process. Just share a little bit about that as well, Steve.
Yes. So going back to relationships, I think when you're able to kind of work in the state, So I work with healthcare IT leaders in the state for changes at the state level. We have certain laws that get passed or are considered that, if they were to pass, could have dramatic impact across hospitals. Sometimes the rural hospitals are impacted more, and so what has happened is that through these engagements, I guess I've left positive impressions. So I was nominated. And through that process, it's a little bit rigorous. You have to go in and you have to kind of write up some. I felt like I had to do a lot of writing. I had to do a lot of answering of questions.
Right.
Ultimately, they did some video interview and they ended up showing that. And they had a big gala at the end. And it took months to go through. But I formed relationships with a lot of other leaders in the state across all the verticals. Really, it wasn't just the healthcare space, but you see there on the screen there that the funny thing about this, or the interesting thing about this, was that now this is me I was a finalist, right? So when I was at the gala and my CEO was there and a lot of other leaders were there, when they announced the winner for my category, the person's name was Stephen. And so when they announced Stephen, if you look at this list, there's 2 Stephens there. So when they announced Stephen, my heart skipped a beat, because I felt like when I read about these other guys, they have been in the game a lot longer than me. I felt, I'm just honored to be considered in this circle. But yeah, just being a finalist, I'm still honored. I still feel I have a lot to contribute there. And I still engage with a lot of those people that I met during that journey.
That's good.
So, I think it's not something I went out looking for. It kind of just fell on my lap, and I was surprised. And I think, I really appreciate being honored.
Yeah. It's the reason why I wanted to highlight that is because so many people don't recognize that these systems and awards and platforms exist. A lot of people think of the CIO or the IT leader as somebody who's very nuts and bolts oriented, that they're not out there writing and contributing to thought leadership, that they're not engaged in their craft from a leadership standpoint in every sense of the term leader. And I'm so glad that our panel embodies, all these different aspects. And that's why I wanted to title this episode Technology Leadership, but the focus is really on leadership. So Dr. Harris, talk to us a little bit about your journey, and yeah, we're nearing home, but I'm hoping that we can take a few extra minutes to catch this piece of the journey, and then just get one more response to this one last question from everyone, from each of you, and then we'll close it out.
All right, so I'll start by echoing a statement that Stephen made. I'm honored to be in this group among you. You guys are incredible in all that you do. I know Richard pretty well. I've seen Paige, because we run in the same professional circles. But I'm just so awed. So thank you, Kirk, for the opportunity. There's a 15-minute to 1 hour journey that walks through my career. Let's see if we do it in 2 minutes. And let's say I entered the field right at the dawn of the microcomputer age. And so my very first job was opening up a computer lab at a university. And since then, I've worked at 12, 20 different universities, depending on how you count it, because at some point in time, I had broader responsibility in the corporate world across a lot of universities. And one of the things that I was taught in my first or second job, I say one of my favorite mentors, taught me the value of being wrong. And I remember I made a mistake. I was in my early 20s, and I had made a mistake that cost the organization thousands of dollars. It was probably $5,000 or $10,000, probably somewhat kind of small now. But I went to him and I said, "This is what I did. This is the mistake I made. I'm sorry." And I was essentially saying, "Punish me." And he looked at me and he said the phrase that has moved my entire career, that has leaped my career forward. And he said, "It's some version of we all make mistakes." But that wasn't the point. The point was, when you move to a particular point in leadership, none of us really knows what we're doing. We're all guessing our way through. We hired you, DP, because we thought you would be the best guesser when it came to technology. Matter of fact, this had to have been post at least one graduate degree that was coming from. But we thought you would be the best guesser. And with that assurance from my vice president at that time, I was released to make good decisions, to be aggressive about decisions without fear that I'm going to get in trouble because I made a mistake. We all say fail early, fail often. I always say fail early, fail often, fail as cheaply as possible, and recover as quickly as you can. You want to keep moving through your career. And so throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work at universities of all different sizes. I've worked in all areas of technology. And probably the most important thing that I've learned is how to say we have failed. And the precursor to saying we failed is to make sure that whatever you're setting out to do, you have a clear definition of what success looks like.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes we just kind of move through projects and hope something comes out of it. But if you define this is what success looks like, then it's very easy to look at where you are at any point in time and say, wow, we are not on track to achieve our goal. Let's step back, take a break, and shift. One of my team members said to me one time, DP, I don't understand how you can say you're wrong so much. You say it without embarrassment. And I thought that was a funny statement, and I just turned to him and laughed. I said, well, if you've been wrong as many times as I've been wrong, you get used to it. And he laughed, and it's just trying to get my team in the rhythm of, hey, admit it. If you think you messed up, say I messed up. If you think you don't know what you're doing, say I don't know what you're doing, because we're a team. And we can cover each other, and we can build each other if we're able to acknowledge that. And so throughout my time, I've been able to work with brilliant people. I've been able to grow people. Mostly, probably my happiest thing of growing people is growing people out of their arrogance. And I point to myself, and I point to most people in the IT field who feel like we know what we're doing. And I always say, without getting into some of these stories, unless you have failed at this 2 or 3 times, then you don't know what you're talking about. You might know how you did it correctly, but you're not an expert until you have tried and failed at least a couple of times. So you'll know which way to go and which way not. And so we try to do that as a team as we move forward.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to throw something on screen here real quick. This is David Hunt found the link to the book. So those who are in the comments, you can actually click that link. But I do want to share the website, thalesofagility.com. That's the website for Michael Levine. And then Paige, your website, is it CIO Paige? Is that's what I found out there? Yeah. So some of her resources are on that site as well. Paige, do you take part in the CIO chat on Thursdays on Twitter? Are you in there sometimes?
I do.
Okay.
1 p.m. Central. I do. I bet I'm always late, but yes, I do.
Yeah, I'm usually late as well, but I find that to be a resource as well. CIO chat is just hashtag CIO chat on Twitter on Thursdays. It's always good fun, always some interesting questions, and the feedback from CIOs literally all over the country and probably other parts of the world even is just excellent, and really a great community that they have created there. Definitely somebody that I'd like to have on the show at some point as well. I want to just do one last question. I know we're over our time. I want to just have this one last question for everybody to share. A lot of the people who watch the show or in the community here for How It All Works are people who are aspiring professionals, people who would like to attain certain levels in their career at some point. And so as they look at the screen today, and as some of the stories that they've heard, they're seeing a wealth of knowledge and experience. So what I want to end with is the question, what is your number one piece of advice for IT professionals who aspire to be in leadership one day? What is your number one piece of advice? And we're going to actually start in the middle. We're going to start with Michael Levine and go to Richard, and then to Stephen McWilliams, and then go to Paige, and then go to DP. I know that's weird, but I wanted to kind of give somebody else a chance to go first this time. So Michael, what is your number one piece of advice? Somebody who is watching, who is saying to themselves, yeah, okay, he's been in those roles, but I mean, what is the number one thing he could share with me that would help me in my journey? What would that be?
I'm going to cheat just a little bit because I have 3 things, but they're
okay. That's good.
They're reinforcing each other.
Excellent.
The first one is get to be expert at something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it doesn't really matter what it is. So whether it's testing or project management or software development, systems analysis, do it for long enough that you're really good at it, and be in the same job long enough that you can see the results of your labors over time. So did the things you worked on 3 years ago, were they right?
Okay.
The next one is always manage your career as if you're going to get fired the next day. So build your skills for the market, not for your company.
Right? That's good.
And the last one is a bit, it's kind of a personal thing, which is learn about and understand the basics of lean and agile. The foundations of it, not the processes. So don't immerse yourself in safe only, right? That there's knowledge there. Understand the principles behind it all. what kind of adaptive process control versus predictive process control? What can we learn about the basic nature of people working together on complicated things?
Excellent. Yeah, that's very, very big in terms of technology leadership. Absolutely. Who did I say next? Did I say Richard? I think I said Richard. Yeah. So
Yep.
Richard, what is your number one piece of advice for IT professionals? People who are going to be watching this after the fact and in the replay. 17 people are watching right now. Some are even commenting. What is your number one piece of advice?
My number one piece of advice is the advice that I wished someone would have given me 23 years ago, and that is to shut up and learn to listen. I cannot offer any type of meaningful solution if I don't understand what your goals are, if I don't understand what your needs are. And so I need to learn to listen so that I can better understand what you need, and then I can go about trying to devise a solution. Learn to listen.
That's applicable for people who are aspiring, and it doesn't really matter what vocation you're in or what discipline. Learn to listen. That's a good one. Stephen McWilliams, one piece of advice. Talk to us.
Okay, so my advice would probably need to be explained, but I think you probably all heard this before. I would just tell people that your success could be wrote into in an equation. I say preparation plus opportunity equals success. And so what I would say is, okay, in order to prepare, know what your passion is, know what you actually want to do, and you can know this by exploring, reading books, internships, talk to other leaders, watch interviews like what we're doing now.
Watch how it all works. Yes.
And then watch how it all works, and then prepare. Once you know what you want to do, go get your education. Go and continue to read, continue to learn, continue to write, continue to be involved. And then, when the opportunity comes, when you're prepared, then it allows for you to kind of reach your goal. And so I think that incorporates probably some of the things that have already been said and what will be said as the equation. But I also have to put in there too, someone that's, that has a faith, lean on your faith. That has a play in this.
Oh, absolutely.
Well.
Absolutely.
And so, I think it's, for me, I can truly say that leaders had encouraged me to go and get prepared. And when the opportunity came, success.
Yeah, we share a mutual friend, Ronsack Cartwright, who we both work with at Oakwood University at different times. But man, he is a phenomenal leader, and definitely I know he has poured into you and some of the things you're saying and not saying. but yeah, I wanted to just say his name real quick because I recognize some of the things that he has done for a number of people that came through Oakwood while in his tenure there. I think we were going to go to Paige next. Your number one piece of advice, and if if there are different iterations of it, we've given people freedom to do a couple versions, but your number one piece of advice for somebody who's watching right now, maybe let me say, well, no, let me not be specific, but I will say that we are trying to see more women in tech. Somebody was talking with me recently about doing a women in tech panel, and I was like, that's absolutely phenomenal. And I've got to find somebody to actually host it because I'd rather not be the host of that panel. But yeah, I'm just so excited to have you on the show and represent for women that are in the technology field, and not just in the technology field, but really, tearing it up. So talk to us about what is your number one piece of advice.
Well, my number one is always listen, but as we can tell, Rich stole that from me. So I will say, there's no greater barrier to success than ego. So check yourself.
Check yourself.
And then I actually was going to say, for women, and in particular minority women, get your butt in the game.
Yeah,
find
get in
yourself
there.
a mentor. Find yourself a female advocate. Find yourself a male ally. If you have any questions on how to do this, find me on Twitter at CIO Paige.
CIO Paige.
Follow me, DM me, whatever you got to do. We need more girls. We need more people of color in this industry.
Thank you. There's a growing group of female technology leaders that are very active and vocal on this topic. I'm excited to have you here. In fact, in my last panel, I just want to share this. One of the gentlemen said to me, I will come. I have no problem being a part of your discussion, but I will not come unless there is female representation. And I thought that was so great. I mean,
would that be Michael or?
That was Michael Berman.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Michael Berman said, I will not come unless there's female representation. Of course, we had Dr. Kimberly Marshall from Morehouse College last week. So that was something that I was very cognizant of, I'm very sensitive to, but we just want to make sure that conversation, that topic is something that we're plugging. We want to see more women in tech, whatever we got to do to pad this end of the pipeline so that we have them, in a few years, ready and available for us to see in different spaces.
We're over 50% of the workforce.
Absolutely.
Why are we 28% of technology leadership, and why are female people of color freaking 11% of that?
Come on.
It's not okay.
It's not okay.
We'll get there.
We'll get there, but I love the passion, and I'm so glad that we were able to touch on that part. Dr. Harris, I almost called you DP. Dr. Harris, we are closing off with you. Go ahead. What is your number one piece of advice? I think you kind of said a couple of them already, but let's see if you can find another. One more piece of advice that for IT professionals who aspire to be in leadership at some point. I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry.
We're good.
Yeah, I'm not going to be embarrassed that I'm being repetitive of Paige and Richard, because anybody hears me talk about leadership, you'll always hear me say the essence of leadership is listening. And that's always my number one advice. But one of the things that has expanded in my mind over the past several months, just watching a lot of the divisiveness that is going on in the world and understanding, it's the understanding that everybody you encounter has come to this moment with a completely different perspective than you have. And when you can realize, when you walk into a room, you walk into any situation, you are encountering people, you're encountering your teachers. And if you can make yourself into a lifelong learner, if you can say every encounter I have is an opportunity for me to listen, then you end up saying, Paige, check yourself, right? You end up saying, Richard, shut up and listen, right? You end up saying, if I want to learn, if I want to be smarter than I was when I walked into the room, I have to spend less time talking and more time listening.
Phenomenal.
I've enjoyed all the listening and learning I got to do over this hour.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, man, the time has been far spent. I'm going to have to see if the panelists would be willing to come back at some point in season 2 for How It All Works, because this dialogue was excellent, and I feel like we're just kind of getting started, but we're already 15 minutes over, so I'm not going to hold you much longer. What I did want to do is, if anybody had something that they wanted to share, how can people follow you? I know Paige has shared her Twitter. If we could just very quickly, briefly go through, starting with DP and coming around to Paige, how can people follow you? Where are your resources? Where do you write? Where can people, hear more from you? Let's just take a second and do that right before we close out.
I might be the least prolific person on this call. You see me on Facebook. You look up DP Harris. You see me on Twitter and LinkedIn. But
your Facebook and LinkedIn, Instagram are all right there.
All right, that's me, and that's me, and that's me.
Good.
So I'd love to hear from anybody.
Cool. Stephen.
Yeah, I probably need to work in this area. So I'm on LinkedIn. You may, hopefully you'll see some more of my articles in magazines if you read leadership magazines. But really just LinkedIn is kind of where I am right now. Not so much on the Facebook or Twitter so much, but maybe I need to expand my horizons.
Well, we'll have you back.
Opportunity for me.
And they can find you on how it all works. Michael.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a good place to connect with me. And then my personal website, which it's mostly about my books and my what I teach is thetales-of-agility.com, all one word.
Yeah. So thetales-of-agility.com is underneath his name on this screen, and then the 3 books are there as well, along with his LinkedIn handle. So yes, definitely you can find him in those spaces. Richard.
I was thinking that I was the very last person on the planet to not be part of Twitter. So I'm at least very thrilled to know that there's maybe one other person out there. But it has been a real thrill to be with you tonight. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Excellent. And I know, Paige, you've got the website, and we know you're on Twitter as CIO Paige as well, and the website is ciopage.com. Any other places that people can find you? Maybe on the Tulsa website or something.
Well, typically, if you just search CIO Paige Francis, stuff pops up. But I am a contributor for Forbes. I have 2 topics that I cover, and that's going to be women in STEM and higher education technology.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Folks, next week on How It All Works, we will be talking to public speakers. Public Speakers Unite. And we've got a panel of speakers that are going to be coming to talk about that industry and that vocation and that business. And I hope that you'll tune in. It'll be next week, same time, same channel, same place, 5:30 in the Central Standard Time Zone, right here on howitallworks.com or on youtube.com/Kirk R. Nugent. In this hour, we've talked about technology leadership. We've talked about, leadership in all its different facets. We've given you a peek behind the veil, as it were. Allowed you to look around a little bit and hear from some of the unique perspectives of those who were on the panel. And I hope that something clicked. I hope that the light bulb went off. I hope that you were able to piece together how it all works. And I hope that you'll join us for the next one. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.